All right. So once again, welcome everyone to this year's final presentations of the Green Advisors and Sustainability Advocates. I'm so grateful that you could all make it during this very strange time and join us online on Zoom from all of your different locations, really around the world right now, with our students who are presenting are in all sorts of different locations. I want to say to get started that I'm so incredibly proud of the fantastic work of this year's cohort of Green Advisors and Sustainability Advocates. I'm really excited for you all to hear about those projects. Even those of you in the programs, I think it's a great opportunity for you to hear about what else has been going on and with all of the other different projects that we've had this year. And we have 18 projects, so it's quite a lot. I'm going to go through just a couple different logistics and notes before we go into the presentations, but could you all let me know if you at all have trouble hearing me or anything's going wrong with the technology? While we're in screen share, I can only see a few people at one time, and my internet is wobbly, so definitely, someone let me know if there's an issue. Aurora mentioned a land acknowledgement, and we did want to start today with just a quick recognition of the land that we're on, and ask you to take a moment to reflect on the history of the land wherever you are, which is lots of different places right now. But many of us are still in the Philadelphia area, so let's take this moment to acknowledge the Lenape history of this broad area. The homeland of the Lenni Lenape includes what is now Delaware, New Jersey, Eastern Pennsylvania, and Southern New York. So in this time where we're all in our various locations, we want to take this small opportunity to continue honoring and supporting the cultural heritage of the Lenape people in this region and of Indigenous people elsewhere, wherever you are. And I'd encourage you after this session to take a moment to learn about the Indigenous history of your area, if that's something that you don't know much about. And then finally, on this note, I also wanted to take a moment to just share gratitude for the spaces that we're able to be in right now, safely, wherever that is, and a special expression of gratitude for our internet access right now that's bringing us together. So we are going to go through, like I said, quite a few presentations, and we're going to break it up by having 3 sets of presentations. So we'll do 6 presentations at a time and then have a period for Q&A after that point. I wanted to mention that there will be 2 groups who were not able to fully join for the Zoom call because of time differences and other challenges. So I'll be sharing, I'll speak for a few moments on their slides since they couldn't be here with us today. In terms of how it's going to work on Zoom, we have everyone muted right now, though you have the ability to unmute yourself. Please, for the most part, stay muted because this is a big group. And if we are hearing any noise or anything that's distracting, we may just go ahead and mute you if we see that that's an issue. When it's your turn to present for the GAs and advocates, please go ahead and unmute yourself. Or if it makes sense for you to be answering a question during the Q&A period, you can also unmute yourself then. You are welcome to keep your video on. That's really nice for everyone so that we can see each other's faces like we would be if we were in person, and especially when you're presenting, please try to have your video on. Elizabeth will be sharing her screen with our shared slide deck. So if you need to have her advance a slide, please just say so and she'll do that. And then I just want to remind our presenters that I will be timing you. So we don't want to go over 3 minutes, and I'll give you, a poke if you're going over that amount of time. Okay, while groups are presenting, and we'd love for you to share your questions with them, and we've scheduled really quite a lot of time for Q&A. Please share your questions in the chat that's in this Zoom call, and we'll try to keep track of those questions. If we have time kind of at the end of the Q&A periods, We may see if anyone wants to actually speak and share some thoughts, but until that point, we'll just, me or someone else in my office will read out the questions, and then we'll have the presenters answer, just so we don't have too many people unmuted at one time. And then right at the end of the session, at the end of our 2 hours, we're gonna have some closing remarks from a few folks just to wrap us out for the day. All right, so that is basically it from me. And I think we can get started with our first group. And so you can see our 6, we're gonna have 6 at a time. This list will come up again during the Q&A period, so you can see. And we're gonna start with Kyra, I believe. You ready to go, Kyra?
Always ready.
Excellent.
Okay, so I was lucky enough to work with Maurice Eldridge this year, among other folks in the Friends Center. The Friends Meeting House is situated on Swarthmore's campus, up near the new BEP building, and has some student presence, but is also, it's like mainly the Swarthmore outer community that occupies the space, and the building is partially owned by the college and partially personally owned. That being said, the meeting house was not on the same sustainability initiatives that the school has laid out and that the rest of the buildings on campus are, by virtue of it being partially owned building. That being said, Maurice, among others, wanted to change that and wanted, they felt that they were part of the footprint of the school and they wanted to make those changes. So first, we felt that we needed to get the three waste station model to the Friends meeting, and that required a lot of walking through the space, organizing with EVS to understand where those waste stations can go logistically, how many we needed, what types we needed, and then finally who was going to fund it. So we did that. We got approval for the school to fund it, and then we were able to successfully implement 5 waste stations in the Friends meeting, which was really exciting. This happened in January. After that happened, there was a bit of a learning curve with the community that occupies the space, with how to use them and why we use them, and the fact that having just trouble understanding that diverting waste in different spaces didn't necessarily mean anything was going to change. So we started, between Melissa, Maurice, 2 women from the Friends meeting, Chip, and I, we sat down to kind of talk through some things and talk about how to move forward in the best way possible. So that was kind of where we left off before spring break. So then if you could advance the slide, or can I do it? Okay, yeah. So next steps felt like producing a physical and signage or pamphlet that could be given in the Friends meeting for people that didn't quite understand the why or the how of the waste diversion. I know I'm short on time, I'm watching it. And additionally, we felt that we needed to host in-person zero waste, like education sessions as we do in other aspects of the school, just to reach this community that may not have the same background that Swarthmore students have. And then additionally, we want to add to the renter agreement that people that don't normally occupy the space, how they can best divert their waste and follow what we have set out. And then lastly, to reach the nursery school, there's several classes, several age groups in this, in the downstairs of the Friends meeting, who we want to start the education, the why, the how now. And it's definitely requires a different approach with different age groups. And so I think it could be a really fun way for a GA to get involved with them as well.
Thank you so much, Kyra. Thank you to Maurice and the whole Friends meeting community for this project. And thank you for going first, which is always challenging on a new medium as well. Let's keep moving, and we're gonna hand it over to Carole.
Cool, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Carole, and I will be presenting on the work that Pam from Institutional Research and I have been working on for the semester. So the work that we've accomplished is that we finally finished the signage that will be hopefully distributed during the fall semester in Building 101. The purpose of the signage was to create something supplemental to what we already see in the way stations on campus, but to adapt it so that it's more applicable to the office building space. Next slide, please. So that's something that we finished, but something that's ongoing that we're really excited to be working on is something with dining services. So we are helping them find the best compostable options for food at SEs and takeout food that is supplied by area restaurants that can be purchased at the Science Center in Coburg. That includes things like sushi and Indian food. So here we have like a screenshot of kind of what we're working with. Pam was amazing. She designed this Excel spreadsheet layout, and it's really helped to streamline the process of researching and parsing through what we want to look for. This particular screenshot is about the roasted vegetables. Tim from Dining Services, who has been an extreme mentor for us and has been guiding us throughout this process, has expressed interest in finding something for roasted vegetables. So something smaller that's compostable. So we just have a few options listed here of various sizes, and you guys can see that there's various prices there. For example, in the first column or the first row, it says 11 cents per item, and we're just comparing as we go. Another one that we're working on is, if you could go to the next slide, is sushi containers. So the ones that we get from Yangtze, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a sushi caterer that we get. They are currently using recyclable containers, but we're gonna see if we can try to convert that to compostables as well. The difference between the one that I previously showed you in the other screenshot is that this one has a price comparison with a plastic non-compostable option, because currently it's a little bit more complicated as they're off campus catering services, and they're not using any compostable options currently. So that's what the comparison is underneath the blue line with 14 cents per item. What's really great about this is that we've noticed that there isn't a huge price difference from what we've researched so far in compostables and plastics. As you can see in the top row, or the second row, there's one that's 15 cents per unit, which is a pretty good comparison to the 14 cents that's being offered as regular non-compostable recycling options, or non-compostable options. So we're really excited to be exploring this and hope to continue in the fall. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Fantastic job, Carole and Pam. Thank you so much. Let me just take a moment to remind everyone that you're welcome, if you have questions, to be entering them in the chat at any point, and then we'll, after a few more presentations, we'll start going through those. So you don't need to wait until that point to enter them in. All right, let's hand it over to Criss.
Hi, everyone. So I was working with the athletics department with Coach Eric Wagner and Coach Shane Leffler. So we wanted to have as large an impact as soon as possible, and we knew that one of the largest generators of waste was actually athletics events within the athletics department. And we knew that one of the reasons that this was occurring was because, you know, there were insufficient resources to properly facilitate this waste diversion. So we wanted to see if we could solve this, you know, pretty quickly and, you know, start contributing to better waste facilitation. So we went to work and we started by enlarging and, you know, printing out the GA signage that was already established for waste disposal. And then we worked with Chip Proctor and Catherine Serino to gather waste bins and colored garbage bags. And we collaborated with Garnico Green, which is a club of athletes at Swarthmore who are focused on sustainability. And then we also worked with some sports teams to have reps for these pilots to assist spectators with waste diversion. At each of these pilots, we saved around 30 pounds of waste, totaling up all of the home games that we would have. That there's potential to save over 1,000 pounds of waste each year from these athletics events. Some feedback from these pilots was, you know, the signage was very effective, and having the G3 reps there to assist spectators was also helpful. And having these more robust waste systems did greatly impact, you know, the accuracy of this waste diversion. But one thing that we think might also really help enhance its effectiveness is if we have announcements at the beginning of these games to make spectators just more aware of the initiatives that we have going on. Another initiative that we worked on, that we started working on, but we weren't able to fully implement was like a tree planting initiative with the athletics department. So we started it with the basketball team and called it Threes for Trees. So the idea was for X amount of points scored by each team, they would commit to planting a certain amount of trees. We were in contact with a few student athletes, but we were interrupted with the planning when we went remote. So that's something that we're going to definitely be implementing next semester, as well as, just solidifying this process of waste diversion with athletics events. But, just before I finished up, I wanted to thank Eric and Shane for helping me, for really, just supporting me in everything that I do and always, lending a helping hand whenever I needed it. So thank you guys. I look forward to working with you guys next year as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Criss. Thank you, Eric and Shane. It's great to hear about how far this initiative has come. All right, let's head next to Gabriel and Matt.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriel. This year I worked with Matt in the biology department. We were working on sort of figuring out a system for e-waste for the campus. So this year, so far, we've procured sites to store e-waste. And then we've sort of reached out to some staff around campus in different buildings and departments as contact points. We were able to get up more information on e-waste on the college website on the waste disposal guide, which was really nice. And then the rest of our work was sort of researching e-waste companies and then figuring out who on campus already has some sort of e-waste system, like ITS in particular we're working with, to sort of figure out like what we can do right now going forward. And then in addition, we sort of created reminders to send out to staff and faculty for biannual pickups that are currently conducted by EVS. So sort of a good bulk of work that still needs to be done, which we're looking to do in the fall, is we want to continue to send out these reminders and sort of like maintain these relationships with these point people that we've selected to sort of like keep them in the loop. And then I think sort of the biggest step is sort of unifying and consolidating all of the e-waste systems that are currently on campus, sort of like streamline it and make it more available for everyone. And then the next steps after we've sort of built our infrastructure is like reaching out to an e-waste company. And then hopefully we can figure out some sort of contract like we have with recycling facilities or trash facilities. And then we'll be collecting e-waste just as we would any other waste stream.
Thank you, Gabriel, and thank you, Matt. Very exciting how we've gotten this started, moving e-waste so much farther along this year. I'm really appreciative of your work. Okay, how about take it away, Daniel?
Okay, hello, my name's Dan. My project this year was to work on Swarthmore. I started off the year with a former GA, my friend Hannah, and the two of us were the two staff people for the Swarthmore free store. So I'm kind of going to take you through the year, but I realize I have a very short amount of time. So donations are collected in the spring. I'm sure you guys know this. Move out is very hectic. A lot of donations are collected, sorted through during the summer. The move-in period is very busy. So super busy. We were hosting like 4 or 5 hours a week sometimes. It starts to slow down at the fall as the fall goes on. Here, if you can see in the picture, we did a little Christmas raffle. We found this box and we just got a bunch of like little knickknacks from around the store. And then when people came in, we would put their name in a box and then we emailed the winner right before Christmas break. That was very fun. The status of Swarthmore for the upcoming year is really up in the air right now. I've been talking with Melissa, and I know the Zero Waste Working Group is trying to map out some scenarios on what's going to happen. It's all really dependent on the move out and the move in process, whether or not we can trust that things won't be contaminated. If we're going through a process of cleaning things, oftentimes at the end of the year, the Office of Sustainability will hire a number of student workers for like the 2 or so weeks after finals to just sort through all of the just piles of things, dorm room objects that are collected. Since that isn't going to be the case, it's really unclear how this is going to move forward. So it'll really just depend on the college schedule, whether or not there will be stock in Swarthmore next semester. Could you move the slide? So this is a kind of a continuation of Swarthmore. This idea was proposed to me by the PSERF Chantal, I don't know if she's on this meeting, to do a communal closet based on my previous work with SEW, doing clothes swaps that were kind of just pop-ups, also trying to combine that with the Fly Winter Coat Drive that Dean Henry is really, really involved in and really does great work with that. So we had a meeting. There was a bunch of different people representing. Melissa was there, I was there, Chantal was there, a couple of the deans were there to try to see if we can get a permanent space to do a clothes swap. Of course, there's issues of prioritizing low-income students and accessibility, and then just finding a space to. So this is a project we hope to be able to work on in the next year to kind of have an addition to Swarthmore that's going to be more focused on clothing, coats, things like that. Love to take any questions. It was so nice.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Can you all still hear me? My internet's been a little odd. Great, wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I think we welcome definitely further questions about Swarthmore in the Q&A period. For the last one in this section, let's turn to Sandra.
Hello, everyone. So I'm not the SA, I'm not the GA, but I'm the SA, and I want to say thank you to Yanyi. She's back in China, so she's not connected with us right now, but I still want to say thank you to her for all the work. So basically this whole semester and year, we spent our time on outdoor waste because grounds department is the department that deals with it. And so last semester, all of the bins, we found 88 total, but we found that most of the stations only have one bin. We have very few recycling and no permanent compost. And so as we were also taking pictures and data, we identified some problems. Some of the problems include, but are not limited to, that we don't have a standardized system, that not all the buildings have a bin nearby. And composting outdoors is going to be a little more difficult considering environment conditions and maybe small animals. And because we are also an arboretum, we have higher expectations for aesthetics. And dog waste might be another problem. And of course, cost. Outdoor bins are in general more expensive than plastic bins. And so we think that part of the solution might be these bins that are called big bellies. Next slide, please. And so just very briefly, there's a picture of 3 big bellies on the left, but they are basically small compactors. They are solar powered. They have a web software that communicates staff when they need to be emptied. And so many public spaces are already using them, cities, but also a number of schools. And so we came up with a number of questions. You can see the questions on the left. They're probably a little hard to see, but we want to know if
if they are really that sustainable, if they are very efficient. And so how does composting work? Because if compost is getting compacted, we want to know if we can sort it. Next slide, please. And so we also partner with the athletics department to create this Big Belly pilot proposal. And so 5 locations were identified with different people: athletics, GA and SA, staff, GAs, P-serves. And so ideally, to start the program, we would need about 15 grand. But all of this was before COVID-19. And so we still want to continue doing research on big bellies and other alternative bins. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing, Sandra. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you to Yanyi, who can't be with us right now. We really hope that this can continue in the fall. So this first set of presentations that I think you've seen, it's been a lot of work in furthering the zero waste goals of our community in a lot of creative ways, some of them specific to departments, some of them reaching out to community groups, but all really pushing us forward in important ways. So we have some time for questions of these groups now. You can see these 6 here, but maybe Elizabeth, as we get started with talking, we'll take the shared screen off for a moment so we can have a moment to see each other. And we got 2 questions to start off with. We got 2 questions about e-waste. So first, what is e-waste? And thank you, Mohammed, starting to answer that in the chat, but Gabriel or Matt, if you want to add in, please do. And then a second question is, what are some of the e-waste companies that Gabe and Matt have been in touch with?
I guess I could feel that the first question was already answered, but wanted to add that working appliances, small appliances, we hope to send to Swarthmore. And scrap metal is also something that we collect, but we don't really have to call a company to come pick that up. There's actually a dumpster down at the heat plant, but so far we've collected a lot of that, a lot of scrap metal. So just keep that out of the waste stream. I don't have my list in front of me of the companies that we have, but Retriever is one. And we really don't have to have a contract with them, but we're going to look into that to have the college have a contract. So right now we're going to keep it simple, and we're piggyback, like Gabriel said, we're going to piggyback off of ITS's collection in the summer. And then one of my colleagues in computer science also works with a company because they produce a lot of computer waste, and we can piggyback off that. So if we do start to collect a lot of things, then we need to start calling some of these companies. Gabriel, do you remember some of the other names?
Yeah. So just kind of like what we have now, like with the biannual pickup, it's a company called Eldridge. They mostly deal with hazardous waste, and they're based in Westchester. But some of the other companies that we were looking at are eForce, which deals specifically with like e-waste. They're based in Philadelphia. And then I know the ITS department uses Gigabyter, which is e-waste, but they're mostly concerned with information safety and like disposal of hard drives and things like that.
Thank you both. Susan, does that help answer your question? And out of curiosity, is this something then that you might bring to the borough as a borough rep?
Well, that was exactly, thank you. It's great to have those names. And of course, Retriever is one we talked about yesterday, for other things. Yes, and I would like to think that maybe somehow we can coordinate with the borough and provide this service, whether we can, connect with the college, the groups, people who are working on this maybe in the fall, and talk about it later. But thanks a lot. That's great information.
Both Susan and Matt have mentioned Retriever, and maybe I'll share that They are one of the companies we're talking to right now in terms of move out waste management and Swarthmore. If we're not able to stock the store from materials from move out for safety and logistical reasons, we want to find some external organizations who we might be able to donate to instead of keeping it internally like we normally do. Of course, we're still trying to keep things on campus, but we want to have backup options, and Retriever is one of those options, along with Green Drop, who we've worked with in the past. We don't have any other questions in the chat right now, so I do want to open it up, and we'll try to do this, just be polite if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question or share a comment before we move on. I'm also just looking around to try to look at faces.
I just want to say that those first several presentations were amazing and impressive, and so it's so incredible how much good work is going on all through the campus and how many people are figuring it out and doing the problem solving and making it happen. So I look forward to hearing the rest of them.
I had a question just about athletics. I don't know, if, Criss, this was in your conversations, but in being a Garnico Green representative, in that group, we talk about, just the, also the amount of just, carbon that goes into, flying for spring break trips and for, bus rides, and there's a lot of travel, obviously, and so we were talking about how to go about that, because it seems necessary. I don't know how you go about the normal athletic schedule and don't have that, but it's just something to be aware of. And I had proposed an idea that we at least get the conversation going, because I think it's something that a lot of people don't recognize and just take for granted. So even if it's not something that we can directly combat, at least to talk about it. I just didn't know if you talked about that at all in your project.
Yeah, no, so that thank you for bringing that up. We actually hadn't really talked about that, and wasn't something that was on my radar, but I think that definitely is something that we should be aware of and more conscious about, and something that we should be acknowledging. So I'll make sure to include that in any future conversations with athletics.
Criss, do you mind just reading the question? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, so the question from Patricia was, does the Trees for Threes project involve planting trees at Swarthmore or elsewhere? So we actually started out wanting to plant these trees elsewhere because, we have a lot, we're an Arboretum, we have a lot of trees at Swarthmore. So we thought, it might be good to see if we can bring it, somewhere off campus. But there would be a lot of, logistical, hardships with that, because you need ongoing maintenance and things like that for upwards of 2 years. So I was going to be reaching out and working with Momi, who is a P-Surf, and I'm to my knowledge, she was going to be planting trees on campus. So I think the direction we're taking moving forward will be on campus planting of trees.
Thank you, Criss. We've said P-Surf a lot, and I know we do have a few community members on the call. Brenna or Kyle, would you be willing to just say a sentence about that program?
Sure. PSER stands for the President's Sustainability Research Fellowship. It's a year-long class and internship for about 12 students each year, where each student works on a separate on or off-campus sustainability project. They have a full year of classes and a paid 10-hour-a-week internship. It's really quite involved. They're working with a full team of project board members. It's an example, I would say, of a slightly more involved version of the work that you all have so expertly presented today.
Thank you so much, Kyle. And yeah, there's a lot of overlap between our PSURF and our GA projects. A lot of co-support. Criss, Jennifer left a comment for you about a bus stop tree planting initiative in LA that you might want to check out. And then we have one more question for Kyra this time from Andy Fike. Was there any specific engagement with the nursery schoolers about composting and recycling? And if so, how was it received?
Yeah, so I think that was definitely next steps in our project, because I think it was really important to us to recognize that primarily the Friends meeting is used for events and meetings like once a week, and then renters, and then the nursery school. Like there were three kind of clienteles that we were trying to reach. And the nursery school seemed like such a great opportunity to start this learning so young. And now that we have the way stations in the space, it's so easy to get that going. But we wanted to have the way stations in the space before we started it. So there was some context and some activities that we could start. And part of that, which I had on my slide, but then it got to be too much, so I took it off. But ideas that we had were having smaller little containers within the classrooms to implement a smaller waste diversion type thing in the classroom as a lesson, that then it could be someone's job weekly to go bring it to the waste station, or if there was going to be a sorting activity to again have something smaller in the waste stations or in the classrooms. But then also just to kind of start the narrative through drawings or stories about why this matters and why this is important, rather than just having it be something that was to do. So I had aspirations for what that was going to look like, but we had not gotten there yet.
And
thank you.
I'd love to add to what Kyra said, that yes, we thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to really starting young, but also on Sundays we have other young people up into teenage who can also get some direct hands-on activity there. Many of them already very much interested in saving the planet. And so having them identify with this project is something we will also try to undertake.
Thank you, Maurice. Yeah, this is certainly a project that's going to continue, and we're in discussion about how to keep up the momentum with that group, with that community group. All right, thank you all so much for your questions and for the answers. Let's bring up the slides again and show our 6 groups that are coming up next. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, and for this round, I'll give you a second to just look at the groups. And for this round, we're going to be starting with Alana and Christi for facilities.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Alana Ballagh, sophomore, concluding sophomore. This year, I had the opportunity to work with Christi Muller in the facilities office, specifically looking at faculty and staff rental units. So I mentioned this in our mid-year kind of check-in, but our first project was reorganizing the energy sheets for all faculty and staff renters. That was a very Christi-driven project, but the focus that we've both been working on for the majority of the year is communicating with faculty and staff renters, primarily through infographics. So you can see these 3 infographics. All 3 are multiple pages, but these are the first pages. And the first 2 are key to reducing energy consumption. So just little tips and tricks for renters to implement into their homes, tailored to both winter and spring. And the final infographic that will be sent out this week is more general, just tips and tricks for shelter in place. So some energy tricks, working from home, activities to do, a lot more general. Next slide, sorry. Another project, I wasn't present, but Christi managed this over spring break, the annual clothing swap over spring break. Obviously, COVID kind of derailed the amount of clothing that we got, but we did see some excitement from expanding to include children's clothes. You can see a lot of kids' clothes that people donated and we're really excited about. So potential next steps for kind of continuing these projects, next slide, yeah, would be the continuing communication with faculty and staff renters. So continuing to brainstorm how we can effectively send out maybe more infographics or continuing that conversation. Continuing the annual clothing swap. Ideally next year, we'll all be back together on campus and kind of can expand that project. And just continuing to look at the utility billing system, going off of that reorganized spreadsheet and continuing to brainstorm how we can have the most streamlined and efficient system for billing. I look forward to questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Alana. Thank you to Christi. That was fantastic. Let's turn now to Carolyn and Catalina.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, so I don't know if Catalina is here too, but yeah, we were working this semester on basically kind of collaborating with Zulian Mayfield and Mike Ewall, who are big environmental justice activists around environmental racism in Chester. And yeah, trying to figure out how to help with a project. And so considering Catalina's background in graphic design and also Zulian mentioning like redesigning some flyers, we thought that like redesigning and updating research on some brochures like that haven't been updated from the 90s would be a good project for the year. Yeah, so I guess a lot of what we've been doing has just been like researching and trying to update the research. A lot of it is deliberately hard to find, but I think Mike Ewall has definitely been a really great resource in being able to, in digging up a lot of that research and helping us with that. Yeah, so we hope like once the brochure is ready for it to be used to help recruit more circle members, to have kind of like a concise and visually, I don't know, eye-catching resource that people can have like on paper or online to just learn more. I think is something that will also be really helpful in terms of educating people in Swarthmore and other people in the 5-county Philly region whose trash is being sent to be incinerated there. Yeah. So yeah, so I guess like in the fall, yeah, we just need to finalize the brochure and the design, and then I also want to, or I guess the future GA, I can also set them up with Zulian to kind of talk about what content they want to be more highlighted and if they have any additions or edits that they would like as well. Yeah, so I guess the next slide, if you want to go to it, it's like a little, it's like this is like one draft so far, kind of, and I guess some things that we wanted to highlight were just some facility facts. I guess I found out during this process that there's 489 polluting facilities in the 5-county Philly area, and like definitely the Covanta incinerator in Chester is one of the worst, as well as like I guess the Delcora sewage treatment plant and the Kimberly Clark, aka Scott Paper, Swarthmore alum, power plant and mill that's operating there too. I don't know, and so I think there's like a lot I learned during this process by doing the research and just figuring out like how to just connect to off-campus groups. So I was happy to have the opportunity to do that through this program. Is there anything you want to add, Catalina? I don't know how I am on time.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I hope everyone can hear me. No, I think you did a great job, Carolyn, and that is, I mean, that's pretty much, yeah, what we're looking forward to next semester in the fall is just, yeah, really getting the design crisp and in there, and then hopefully starting to get it out to the community. Be really great. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you both so much, Carolyn and Catalina. And it's fantastic that you're able to continue to develop this community relationship and start to create a resource that, you know, is really something that a community group is looking for and can be really useful. That's one of the goals that we have through this program. And you'll hear, for our attendees, you'll hear some more later on about other community projects coming up soon. For now, let's head over to Sarah and Patti.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm working with Patti Braun in the purchasing office down in facilities. And our project was mainly a continuation of Chloe Krause's PSERF project, which had two main parts. The first part was a sustainable printer purchasing policy. And the motivation behind this project is that a lot of professors have desktop printers in their individual offices, but these are much less efficient, energy and resource efficient. And so we would like to transition everyone to using the big Canon multifunction devices. And then the second project is sustainable catering and trying to explore options for outside vendors to be more sustainable and use more not compostable wares. And for the spring semester, we decided to focus all our efforts on the printer project. Next slide. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll take working with Sarah has been great. And one of the things that we were working on that she was saying was the sustainable printer purchasing policies and information. So we looked at updating the sustainable printer policy information with continuing to work from Chloe with the up-to-date counts for the existing printers, desktop printers, as well as the MFD locations. We also had the current printer contract is going to be up in December. So we're using that as an opportunity to enforce the policy, which is the sustainable policy, saying that it advises that desktop printers are to be eliminated and only multifunction devices are to be used in their place. So this will hopefully work to lower the overall cost and provide great energy savings as well for the campus. And we were making great efforts to make the determination in the locations for the new MFDs that are going to be moved into Singer Hall before all COVID broke loose and changed all the dates. But we're hoping to eliminate, by having the MFDs located in certain places, make it easier to do without the need for the desktop printers. We're looking to incorporate it, manage print options as part of the requirements, and that will eliminate the security concerns. And we're also working on the Swarthmore's policy to be incorporated in the new RFP that will be going out hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And Sarah's been a great help in incorporating that in the sustainability language that needs to be in there when it goes to the different vendors. Then hopefully the new printers or the new MFDs, not printers, new MFDs will be in place at the start of the spring semester next year. Next slide.
So in terms of future work, the RFP is moving along nicely and will be submitted very soon. In terms of the printer policy, in general, we would just like to continue enforcement of it, especially as biology, engineering, and psychology move into Singer, and try to discourage people from bringing their own personal desktop printers into their new offices. And then when we have more time to transition to working on the sustainable catering policy, we would like to revisit popular catering businesses and see if we can help them improve their sustainability practices and encourage departments to use their own compostable wares when catering for events. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. Could you just real quick, before we move off of it, just say again what an MFD stands for? Maybe we can go back 2 slides.
Yeah, if you go to the first slide, an MFD is a multifunction device, which means that it can not only print, but also scan and fax and do a bunch of other things.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you. Wonderful job. Big projects. Okay, for this next round, unfortunately, Magda and Tara were not able to join us today, but they did prepare some slides, so I'll just walk everyone through them real quick. They've been doing some really, really interesting work that I'm glad we still have an opportunity to share with you. So I think they have 4 different things that they wanted to mention. So the first, and I should say that Tara is the lead staff member in the costume shop, works with the Lang Performing Arts Center and theater and dance and other academic departments on campus. And so they've been thinking a lot about waste with those departments. So for example, one project is to help mitigate performance waste. So after shows, what happens with the set design. And we've begun working with an organization called Revolution Recovery to take a lot of that waste, which is very similar to construction waste. Number 2 on the right here, they've been thinking about microfibers that come from modern day fabrics and how to sort of reduce the entry of those materials into the natural environment, and exploring some technologies that try to collect microfibers before it enters the water stream. Next slide. A third project has been, in addition to the stage waste, they've been also just looking at options for fabric waste, and particularly donations of fabrics, somewhat tied to work we do with Swarthmore. And they've been looking at various organizations and creative projects that will take these sorts of clothing waste that may be just pieces of fabric, and what can we do with that, because it really, it's a terrible waste to be sending it to incineration, but it can't be recycled or composted for the most part. And then finally, Tara and Magda and others have been hosting a series of workshops, including some mending workshops, which are really, really neat, teaching folks in the community to learn how to mend their own clothes so that they don't have to go to waste, so that they can last much longer. And this has been especially neat because it's a great partnership of a variety of groups. So SCW, which is Sync Up for Zero Waste, it's a student club. They also host mending and clothing swaps, mending workshops and clothing swaps, and so Tara and Magda have connected to SCW, some of the work that Christi and Alana and others are doing with the faculty staff clothing swap. There's a lot of partnership here, and I know that's going to be continuing in the future. So thank you again to Tara and Magda. Great work this year. Let's turn to Rayyan and Pat.
Okay. Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. My name is Rayyan, and I was the GA working with Pat Martin in off-campus study. I hopped onto this program a bit late. I hopped on in the spring semester, actually. The program was initially started by Pat and Gabriel de Rossi, a former GA, and they basically envisioned how off-campus study could make serious commitments to SWAT sustainability goals, and the potential they saw was in purchasing carbon offsets, kind of revamping the off-campus studies mission statement to kind of incorporate sustainability or sustainable travel into it more, as well as forming or having sustainability workshops in the pre-departure meeting, and as well as on off-campus studies social media or website. This was not only for off-campus study, but also the environmental studies department website currently highlights 1 or 2 programs that are environmental related. And we were thinking about creating a database of study abroad programs related to any field of environmental studies. So work accomplished this semester. We did a quick calculation of the cost of offsetting based on recent emissions data, which we received from Key Travel and then processed through Sightlines, which basically kind of provides institutions with quantitative data of like their energy efficiency or other aspects of like facility logistics. And so for the fiscal year of 2019, looking at all the travel data of students traveling abroad, the calculation was approximately 1,240 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalents, which equated to about $10,000 if we were to purchase offsets from offsetting provider called the Cool Effect. And so their metric was about $7.87 per metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent. Just wanted to talk about some of the challenges we faced this spring, especially with COVID-19. I think off-campus study was especially in a difficult situation, both with their work with Key Travel for the future semesters, but also in terms of kind of bringing back students from abroad. I don't know, Pat, if you want to jump in on that. So we kind of outlined what work we could continue in the fall, but this also depends. It is a quite uncertain time, and so we're not sure, but we want to continue to include off-campus study in the college-wide policy or recommendations for carbon offsetting, on which the Office of Sustainability is working towards, especially Elizabeth Brake. We talked a lot about whether it would be a more streamlined process to have a collective carbon offsetting program for Scope 3 emissions, or whether, and if that wasn't the case, how off-campus study could kind of develop its own program to purchase offsets. As I said, it was a quick first draft calculation, but it seemed, based on off-campus studies budget, that it would be feasible to purchase offsets, but obviously more thorough calculations would be needed to make a concrete decision. Another huge goal was that we realized that simply buying offsets would not be enough to kind of address the problem, and what we really needed to do was reduce emissions and to work towards more direct flights or reduced flights, as well as incorporating sustainability goals into off-campus's mission and in the pre-departure meeting for students. So the Office of Sustainability has developed sustainable travel guidelines, and so future work could be preparing a presentation for the pre-departure meeting that kind of incorporates these guidelines and allows students, or provide students with a better, more holistic understanding of what sustainable travel looks like during the time abroad.
Super. Thank you so much, Rayyan. Thank you, Pat, for working on this. It's really important work in the energy and carbon offset domain. Let's turn to admissions with Noah and Criss.
Hi guys, I'm Noah. I'm currently a sophomore at Swarthmore, and I had the privilege this year to work with Chris Capron in admissions, who himself is a Swarthmore alum. He graduated in 2015. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it here today because he's in a committee meeting right now, so he told me to send you guys his regards. The first project we took on was creating a remote visit guide. Criss definitely deserves a lot of the credit here. Our motivation behind this was two-pronged. First of all, we wanted to promote college accessibility to more rural areas, and we wanted to do this in a sustainable way. Ironically, we came up with this idea of creating a remote visit guide before Zoom and other forms of teleconferencing became so big due to COVID. So we're hoping to, going forward, that the admissions department will be able to use this guide to continue doing remote visits to reach schools that otherwise won't get visited, because the admissions officers are responsible for such large geographic areas. Kind of tying back to this carbon project, we created a Google form to get for admissions staff to fill out, so we can kind of retroactively come up with an estimate for how much travel emissions through air travel the department is responsible for. So going forward, this will likely require the work of either an SA in admissions or a GA to input this to like some online calculator. But ultimately, we are hoping that the admissions department will switch over to Key Travel, so all of this work will be done automatically for us. As another part of our project this year, we kind of thought about the admissions events that the department hosts, like Disco SWAT, and thought about some of the programming here and for ways to make it more sustainable or for ways to highlight Swarthmore's green features. One of the ideas we came up with was featuring a green roof tour at SWAT Struck, which was unfortunately canceled and won't be happening this year. But it was the first SWAT Struck to be paperless, since it didn't happen. Anyways, as a smaller project towards the end of the year, we identified ways to improve the mailing system in admissions. We noticed that there was plastic wrapping, thanks to Melissa informing us, plastic wrapping in a lot of the mailings, which seemed unnecessary. So we found one source that suggested that for shorter distance trips, you could ditch the plastic wrapping and just use no wrapping, or you could use paper, which could then be recycled or composted. In terms of work that will have to be continued in the fall, I think we need to think more critically and reflect on these mailing practices and see if they're actually feasible and worthwhile for the admissions department to implement. I think the main constraints here would be the weight of the packaging and the price when we mail it. Additionally, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to have somebody input and process the data from the Google form to get an estimate for the carbon emissions. That's all I have for you guys, and I'm looking forward to answering questions.
Thank you so much, Noah. Thank you to Criss. And round of applause to those 6 groups for doing a fantastic job this year. So we have some time for questions, and a couple came in. Before I turn it over to others, Patti, you asked a question about the success of the Revolution Recovery Program, the stage waste management. And I just wanted to say I don't feel like I'm able to answer that question. I know Tara or Magda certainly would be able to, and I do know that they plan to continue it. But let's check in with them about that afterwards. So we got a question from Andy to Alana and Christi. Did you encounter any obstacles with promoting energy efficiency in faculty housing? If so, what and how would you recommend overcoming them?
I think probably the biggest obstacle was just the fact that our communication is very one-sided, right? We're sending out a lot of information and synthesized information, but it is very one-sided. It's just us sending out to faculty and staff, and we didn't get any communication back. So potentially moving forward, sending out more communication that kind of encourages a two-way street of encouraging questions or encouraging any concerns to be coming back versus just sending out information. I think that could be a switch when thinking about how to continue.
Thanks so much, Alana. Sue asked a question for Carolyn and Catalina. Would you be willing to come to a community group, which is the Multi-Municipal Environmental Advisory Council, to talk about your work and educate us so that we might be able to connect with you? And let me maybe add, like, not just a yes or no, would you be interested in coming to that group, but share any thoughts on or quick reflection on sharing this with some of the other community committees that are in the area.
Well, I guess my first thought is like, I don't know how that would work. Well, I guess because I'm just, I think I definitely like want to share it with other people. Yeah, I think just because like obviously we're in a pandemic and like I'm not like in the area. I don't know. I guess it's hard to like think about doing it like remotely, but I think sharing it definitely in the future would be important, and like maybe like after another draft. And then I'm also thinking about like it would be great because I know like I don't know if like I guess Mike isn't always in the area, and I guess this might not even be like a local meeting either, so it might just be like an online meeting. But yeah, then if so, it'd be really great to maybe have Mike and Zillian there too, to connect more directly since they are like working in Chester and in the Philly region.
Great, that's a great point. You know, make sure to invite some of the community members that you are trying to assist, and maybe just be sort of a vehicle for connecting different community groups.
Yeah, but it's so great. So thank you for inviting us to that opportunity to share more. And I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it would be.
There was a council.
I realized you're off campus now. So maybe in the fall, when and if school opens again, whatever, you might want to speak with. Do you know Tyler White?
The student.
Right.
Yeah. We were working together. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Tyler has spoken with the group I'm talking about, so you know you can connect with him, and when you come back in the fall, maybe we can connect and you know, you can share what you have, the work you've done with the Zillian and others. Thanks. Anyway, great.
Thank you all. I think one of the great opportunities of having these sort of presentations is to realize the sort of further connections that can be made sometimes between projects, or we start seeing parallels or ways to introduce new people to the projects. And also it's a good way of documenting what needs to be continued in the fall. So I'm looking forward to following up with some of you on that. We had a comment from Car. Car, would you actually mind unmuting yourself and sharing that thought?
Yeah, so we have no idea whether we'll be back in the fall virtually or not, but the idea of admitted students or prospective students being able to take an actual tour of campus on the shoulders of someone walking around is not a bad idea. And this idea has already come up. I've been working with Doug Willen in ITS in other ways to make something like this. And I was just going to get Noah's idea, thought on this, and whether admissions would be interested in that. Just one more thing is, if we don't have actual classes in the fall, there's still going to be professors and other people on campus that could walk around. We don't all have to be back. It may even be the case that many laboratories will be virtualized in the fall. I don't know, no one's decided these things, but in which case it'd just be the professor doing the lab with the students watching or interacting in real time. Why not do the same thing with, with prospective students? Noah, what do you think?
I think that is a good idea. I didn't really have any interactions with tour guides. Sorry, my video cut out. It's not working currently. But I'm meeting with Criss again next week, and I'd definitely be happy to bring that up because I think it is a good idea. And I feel bad for the prospective students because they have to make these decisions about which college they're going to, and a lot of them are incapable or haven't gone to a campus yet. Oh, here's Oswaldo.
Thank you, Noah. Thanks, Car, for the thought. I think it's a great one. So in this set of presentations, the second set, I think we've seen how we can move as green advisors beyond just working with composting or our zero waste goals. As important as those are, there are also a lot of opportunities for connecting on energy systems and carbon emissions and creative community engagement, communication opportunities. So those are all so great. Thank you. For this, oh, I'm so sorry, Oswaldo, I missed your comment, but Oswaldo, who's a student who works with our office, is also a tour guide. I'm just gonna read what you wrote, Oswaldo, unless you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I can unmute myself.
Great.
I'm actually one of the head tour guides for the school. So one thing that we were working on before all of this started happening was on creating a virtual tour for students to be able to take. And we were gonna film that after spring break, but obviously got interrupted by everything. So it is something that we're interested in and we'll hopefully pick back up once we get back to campus.
Amazing, thanks Oswaldo. All right, so let's get the slides back. Oh, we're gonna go on to our final set here. Just give you a second to look at the list. And I'm hoping what I think this last group is gonna show, although there's of course overlaps among many of our projects, but even more community opportunities I think you're gonna hear about from this last set here of reaching beyond campus and reaching maybe departments in really new ways. So I'm excited for you to hear about these. I am gonna share the first one in this set, communications, which was a project led by a lot of different people. So Rayyan had mentioned that he joined the GA program halfway through, and we have a special program for GAs who are returning to the program after studying abroad. We have a few half-year GAs every year. And so we had Chelsea in the fall working with Roy, and they also worked together last year as a GA advocate partner. And then Ayushi joined in the spring. And they've been very involved. It's been a project that's been very involved with the Office of Sustainability. So I'm just gonna share a bit since those folks aren't able to join us today. So they've had a number of different projects. The first one being last year, Chelsea and Roy created a compostable wares purchasing guide. And there has been ongoing work to keep that list up to date. And as Carole and Pam have developed their work with dining services, I think a future step will be to consolidate some of that work. They're not overlapping currently, but I think they could be perhaps put into a shared document in the future as a resource for other departments. Roy has also been working with a PSERF, Nuseba, on the continuation of a plug load pilot. So this is to keep track of energy usage within office spaces, and the communications department has been a part of that pilot for quite some time now, which has been really neat. Third, the communications department has helped the Office of Sustainability to substantially update our website. There was a sort of a rollout of a new format for the Swarthmore College website. And as that came out, we've really been trying to restructure our website so that information is clearer, but key topics that have developed in recent years are really well presented, as you can see in the screenshot that's included here. Ayushi has suggested to us and was really just getting started on working on some student and alumni profiling that we could include on the website, as well as some profiles of projects. So projects like these that we're hearing about today, we hope to get more project descriptions up on the website after the end of the year. So that might be a good summer project. And then a lot of us have been working on a LinkedIn alumni group. There is an existing alumni group started and led by alum H.T. Chisel. We've gotten engaged with him to really find new ways of engagement for that LinkedIn group and tie it to our other social media efforts on other platforms. So there's kind of a lot going on in the communications domain. And I'm happy to answer questions at the end of this section about that. But for now, let's turn it over to Aaron and Mandy.
Oh, hi. My name's Aaron. So, sorry, my brother's playing video games in the background. Sorry if it's a little loud. So my name's Aaron. I am currently a sophomore, and I've been working with the Scott Arboretum and Mandy Banks. And this year we've been focusing on just community outreach. And the community members from Swarthmore that interact with the Scott Arboretum are usually an older audience, and they don't have the same resources or knowledge about the way we do sustainability at Swarthmore. And so my job has been to work with this audience and inform them and create a dialogue between just an intergenerational dialogue about climate change and just waste in general. And so we started that by me working at the fall plant sale, the fall celebration, and the perennial plant sale. And that has typically been me standing next to the waste receptacles and just informing the visitors about where certain things go, where all the food waste goes, and where the trash goes. And it's been a lot of the same questions about like, why is there 3 tiers? I remember when there was just 1 tier, and then they brought recycling in, and then I had to learn all this new things. And then now they're bringing compost in, and it's like hard for them to relearn. And it's been a pleasure to inform them about how we do it at Swarthmore, and just talk to them about their concerns and their ideas and what they know, and like bring that knowledge into Swarthmore. And so the next step for that was to create a blog post, because I can't be at all the events, and it's important to inform the community about how we do sustainability at Swarthmore. And so me and Mandy just finished that up, and we're hoping to post that on the Scott Arboretum website. And because of the pandemic that happened, we wanted to expand the way in which people can be practicing sustainability. So the GAs have developed a Google Doc for students about how they can be more sustainable at home, but we're gonna edit that so it's more applicable to the older audience of the Swarthmore community, and then hopefully send that out to them so people can still be practicing sustainability while they're while they're at home.
Great work, Aaron and Mandy. Thank you so much for all of your work this year. Let's head over to Mohammed.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I didn't have a stable partner for the whole year, and I'll get to that in a second. But the goal of my projects, like prototype projects, were in the vein of creating community engagement and outreach between students and EVS, and to make EVS more visible among students, like have more events where EVS and students were like getting to know one another. Importantly, to create a culture of respect, because the work that EVS does is vital for the health of our community, and we, the students, appreciate them very much. But sometimes it's hard for students to know how they can show their appreciation, and also to to have respect for like adults that in their building. And so after this semester, when the fall semester ended and went to the spring, I shifted my focus to trying to, and I'll tell you how. It's just the goals. I tried to shift my focus to having an avenue and a line of communication where students and parents of students can learn more about EVS, etc. Next slide, please. So for the fall semester, what I did was I continued a Learning for Life project between Rosella and Stephen. Stephen's the manager for the night shift for EVS for shift 3, and he had a radio show called Starting 11 last semester, and he didn't really. Rosella was studying abroad, I think. And so Stephen, no, I don't know if she was studying it, but the project came to an end. So Stephen didn't really know how to get his radio show back on air. It's kind of hard for non-students to be in the know for that. So so Melissa and I reached out to Stephen, and what we wanted to do is we want to continue his show, but also make it like change it a little bit so that it's more like it can kind of like be more of a podcast. It can be something that was more dialogue based, because before his show was mostly just like he played music and just like made quick announcements. But when we started, we tried to make it like an open dialogue and engagement, where we talked about all sorts of things, and I could ask questions representing the students. Stephen could ask me questions about like campus culture and all. We would talk about the Sharples menu. But tragically, this couldn't continue because Stephen really had a lot on his plate when the BEP construction was like really like coming to an end, and when like the finishing touches were putting in, he had a lot to work with. So because of that, the radio station wasn't turned off. It was just we couldn't both meet at that 8:30 time, and that was like when he was really tired because he had to go home because he just like he just had night shift, and he would like finally had opportunity to go back to bed. So this is a great potential for any students any students who fill my position as like the EVS advocate. They could do something similar to this, and this is just like a wealth. There's like a lot of potential for this. So next slide, please. In the spring, because Stephen couldn't continue, what we decided was that we realized that the EVS website was just really bare bones. If you go on it, it's just a page with the contact info for Tyrone and Criss, the manager and the director. The director and the manager of administration and some of the other managers, but nothing really about the techs and the staff. So we had a whole, and it was like it's been a few years since the site was updated. So we reached out to Tyrone and we reached out to Criss, and we sat down and firstly it was the reason it took it was like it hasn't been updated in so long is because they didn't really know how to update it, because a few years ago someone made the website, they hired someone to help them, but they didn't get the training to be able to update it. So we talked with them and we told them that we sat together and we discussed some good additions to the website, things like
Mohammed?
bios. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
You've run over, so might I suggest, because I know you have one more thing to get to.
Yeah, but let me just finish this. Okay, I'll just finish this up. There's a lot of great potential for this too, for being able to open this up. Next slide, please. I just want to say that there's a lot of good students and EVS techs both really like events like the one we had in the spring where we had a luncheon. And there's a few pictures coming, so you can go through. And events like this are just like really great, and there's so few of them. And if we have more, that'd be really awesome. This one event was like everyone loved. So yeah, so yep.
Thank you, Mohammed. And just so everyone knows, because Mohammed's being modest here, this isn't a celebration event for EVS that was really organized by Mohammed and his sister, a young alum. Really, really amazing event that they put on to celebrate our colleagues. Thank you. So let's turn to Susanna and Anthony.
All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Anthony Kondo. I am from the One Card office. And for our project, Susanna and I worked with our off-campus One Card merchants. And our original scope was to look at their operations and offer some ideas for improvement in terms of sustainability and hopefully put those ideas into action. We had to change our scope a bit along the way as we were starting to kind of run out of time on things. But it actually worked out well. So what our scope evolved into was basically fine-tuning and creating the formal process to evaluate their operations and offer some ideas based on what their business model was. So what we have now as far as outcomes is basically a three-step process. So we have a set document in place when we initially go to meet with merchants, and we could use this if we add on any other merchants, but we kind of use this document to ask a certain set of questions and learn about their operation. Then we would kind of take what we gathered using that information, come back and brainstorm. And then we have a tracking tool in place that basically lists all of our merchants all on one sheet. So it's kind of like a snapshot. We were able to kind of look at what everybody has in place and what some opportunities are, and just kind of compare all the operations on one document. And then our third step is kind of having a standard suggestion document for them. So whatever ideas we come up with, we kind of lay them out, give some background, what's the best way to implement them and why it would be important to implement those ideas. We were able to get to this third step with two of our merchants, Hobbs and Duncan. So I think that's kind of where we leave off for next steps in the project. And next slide, please.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Susanna. So I'll talk a little bit about the steps that were taken that Anthony mentioned. So the first thing that we did back in the fall semester was to go and look at all of the merchants, sort of just get an idea, see what they were already doing just from a visual sense. And then after we did that, we went and had meetings, initial meetings to hear more about current practices. And we used our standardized sheet for tracking everything that we found out in terms of what they do for waste and hopes that they had for their own businesses. And then we had our second round of meetings to present these solutions. And we had this standardized document, which was a really helpful way of making sure we were talking about both short-term and long-term solutions and addressing the fact that, each of these businesses are different. We can't do a one-size-fits-all solution. But moving on to the next step of this, we did see some common themes in potential solutions. So one of the biggest ones was improved waste sorting. We think that there's a lot of room for improvement at this level, even if it's just in really basic ways. So some of the vendors don't even have recycling, so that was something we looked into. And we did look into potential composting for both back of house and front of house. And for Hobbs specifically, we looked into potential liquid waste sorting in order to remove some contamination, which would be really helpful in the waste sorting process. And going along with this, we saw a lot of potential for signage, since a lot of these vendors have waste sorting options, but there's no instruction, and that's something that Swarthmore does really well on campus. So we worked with some other GAs and SAs to start the project for making signage for waste sorting. And another general suggestion was more sustainable takeout containers. So we would love to have everyone move to compostable takeout, but we have to understand that there's cost involved in this. So we worked with our dining services vendor, and we're thinking about logistics for the change to compostable or more sustainable options for all of these vendors. Next slide.
Okay, so next steps for the project. So as I mentioned, we were able to bring some ideas to Hobbs and Duncan. So I think certainly where this project can pick up is having the follow-up suggestion meeting with the other 6 merchants that we didn't have a chance to get back to. We do have ideas that we could bring to them. So that's, certainly a path that we could pick up. And then obviously helping them implement any ideas that we have. I think we have to be mindful now, just because of the times that we're in currently, of the cost implications. I'm pretty sure most or all of these merchants are going to need some time to get back on their feet financially. So I think we have to certainly keep that aspect in mind.
Yeah, and we also talked about logistics of composting that I mentioned, and this would be, a big undertaking that other essay projects have worked on in the past. But we started thinking about the logistics of this, and we met with Chip to talk about what it would mean to potentially add the VIL or work with the VIL to the current EVS composting schedule. And, there is a lot to figure out, and we want to make sure that if we were to make this change, that we're being really mindful of what that would mean for EVS and for GAs. But it's an exciting thing to think about possibly doing. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna and Anthony. Really exciting, as you said, important conversations that you've been having. Let's turn now to Tara and others who may be joining the presentation.
Hey everyone. First of all, thank you guys all for being here and bearing with us through all these presentations. Just really awesome to know that we have the support of not only the community, but also like a lot of faculty and staff when we engage on these projects. So my name is Tara and I'm a senior, so I'm about to graduate. And I had the great privilege of working with the Swarthmore Senior Citizens Association on my Sustainability Advocates project. So we have Linton, Carole, and Dan on the call right now. And those 3 were just a tremendous help. They were so much energy, they were so much fun. And we really just got our work done with just such a sense of like, not only like personal achievement, but also we just had great conversations, and we met for lunch every other week and just had a great time. So what did we accomplish this year? Mainly our project was focused on how we can get people outside. The area surrounding Swarthmore, Delco, Greater Philadelphia area has a lot of really awesome trails. Swarthmore's campus itself has a lot of really great trails. So the issue is a lot of people don't really know about them. So our goal was kind of to find a way to get this information out here in a way that's accessible to not only like young people, but like the entire community. So focusing on the seniors with regards to accessibility on how we present this information. So we compiled a trail database using the All Trails app, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. Essentially, it's an app that you can go in and you can create your own trails, and you can really tailor them to, whatever kind of information you would want someone to know. So we had Carole go out and actually walk all of these trails, map them out, create waypoints for parking, bathrooms, and then just historical things like facts about buildings, facts about the parks and the trails themselves. So we really tailored this to the needs of our community, I feel like. So that was really amazing. So essentially we created this really great way and this great tool for people from the Swarthmore community, be it on campus or be it in the town itself, to really get outside, get active, and learn a little bit about, just our natural world outside of like, our homes, which is really useful right now because people are in quarantine. Social distancing activities you can only make a puzzle so many times, I guess. So hopefully, this gives people something that they can use to kind of get out and get active. And also, like I said, working with the seniors was amazing because I was able to really engage on an intergenerational level with community members who, we ate in the same coffee shops, we walked the same streets, but I would never have really gotten to know Carole, Dan, and Linton in the same way had I not worked with them on this project. So that was really amazing. And I think that that's something that the school should really consider engaging with a lot more, because I think we are sharing this community, we are sharing this space, but oftentimes it feels like there's a disconnect between the college campus and then the town itself. So from that level, that was just a really great experience. So with that being said, our next steps, which unfortunately I won't be around to follow through with, but another GI hopefully will be taking over this project in the future and be able to kind of follow through with the work that we've already done. Our next steps are to pilot and refine this database, which was something we intended on doing before COVID-19. But just basically getting people out on the trails, getting them tested, and just getting feedback so we can really make this a community project that everyone feels like they have a say in. And then also just improve the trails and establish a great deal of community outreach. So just letting people know that, hey, like this exists, this is for you guys. We want your feedback, but we also want you out there using it. So with that, I mean, I have some awesome pictures of some seniors practicing social distancing out on some of these trails. And it was just a great project, and I'm really, really excited with what we accomplished through that.
Thank you so much, Tara, and thank you as well to Linton, Carole, and Dan, and the others who are involved in this. It's been really fun. Okay, and last but definitely not least, let's turn to Alicia and Aaliyah.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see so many faces here, even if virtually. We are your GA coordinators. My name is Aaliyah, and Alicia is on this call also. So we had a great year overall with the GA program, as you can see from all the work that's been showcased here within our roles as GA coordinators. So we're really there for program support, working closely with Melissa. We're there helping plan weekly meetings and also like logistics for any kind of events. And also we have been doing a lot of event planning this past year, working closely with some partnerships on and off campus. So last semester, we said this in the mid-year presentations, but we had a few events, one of it was the bonfire that we had at the Crum, which was a welcome back for all the students on campus. And it had a great turnout with the first years there. So it was a very successful event. And then throughout the semester, we really wanted to be there for the GAs and supporting them through check-ins, just checking in with them about the residence halls and the activities that they've been planning, such as study breaks, and also inquiring them about the essay projects that they've been talking about here. And then I'll turn it over to Alicia to talk more about this semester.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm gonna talk about this semester. So as you can see in the slide, we planned for a lot of events, but unfortunately we were not able to host most of them. So we planned for like one event per month. So we were able to host one study break, a movie night on February 27th. It was just a movie screening in Science Center. We watched, oh my God, I forgot the name of the movie. Sorry. So it was just like a small movie night before the midterms week. It was quite, it was not, we didn't have a lot of students there, but we had like a good amount of people, like 15 to 20 people. And then we planned for we have a TRICO event planned and the Earth Day celebration that we were not able to host any of them, but hopefully we will be able to come back to that plan whenever we have, whenever it's appropriate. And Aaliyah can talk a little bit more about the TRICO event.
Yeah, so our TRICO event was called the Students of Philadelphia Environmental Leadership Summit. And we've been planning about it with Haverford since November last semester, just meeting bi-weekly to go through it. And essentially it was a one-day summit that was supposed to connect a lot of the Philadelphia area colleges and universities. So Drexel, Temple, so many. And we were supposed to learn from each other about each other's initiatives, such as waste systems, on-campus food systems, and community projects, as well as more so get everyone together for just connection and possible future inter-campus collaboration. And I think on the screen, yeah, you can see workshops and panels that we had planned with students. Some examples are jobs and internship opportunities, so talking about that. We had optional convenings for affinity groups such as students of color and environmentalism. We were going to do a tour of the dining hall at Haverford and also do a food systems rundown of Haverford. Yeah, but unfortunately that couldn't happen, and hopefully it'll happen in the future. Hopefully we'll also be connecting more with Bryn Mawr. I know we wanted to meet with them too this semester. But yeah, we had a good year overall.
Thank you so much to the two of you for helping to make this program happen this year. We couldn't do it without you. Alicia, were you about to say something?
I just wanted to mention about the Earth Day, but it's just a quick thing. So for Earth Day, we were planning a week-long celebration, including supporting many groups. So we're planning different activities. So we were planning to support a panel, a cultural celebration, a mending workshop, art exhibit, and all of that during the Earth Day week.
Yep. A lot planned, and hopefully, even if it won't be Earth Day or the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, we can do some of those events in the future, and certainly this student summit. I'm looking forward to seeing it happen down the line. Wow, huge round of applause for this group of students, our third round here. We've had some questions come in. It looks like several questions for Tara and friends about the Trails database. So let me start with Aurora's question, really interesting. I lost it, here we go. Did the Trail database include any references to the Lenape tribes who occupied this territory prior to us?
Thank you so much, Aurora, for that question. That is a really great point. Mainly the trails that we focused on for this kind of set of trails that we put in the database were either located on campus, Crum Woods, or in town itself. So when I mentioned historic facts, I meant more on on terms of architecture and kind of just arboretum facts about different historical architectural facts in town and stuff relating to that. With regards to making a statement about the Lenape people that occupied the land before us, that is absolutely something that we could include in our description and something that we should probably, put a little bit more thought into rolling forward. So I really appreciate you raising that point.
Great. A couple more questions for you.
Okay.
So yeah, just read the question.
Okay, yeah. Is this database available to the broader Swarthmore community? As of right now, we have not yet released it to the entire population of the Swarthmore community, but that isn't entirely our intention. So I can totally share that with you, Rayyan, if you're interested. We want to get people out there using it. I think I'm looking at my group members. I think we want to get people out there using it as soon as possible. Yeah, awesome. And then Carmade put up a good question. How about including a list of items to find on the trails, like a visual scavenger hunt? That would be something awesome to include in the future. I think that would make it definitely a fun activity. We're trying to work out ways to get photos uploaded of the trails, and I think that was also one of our next steps. So I think that that's definitely something that we could work into the project in the future. Thank you guys so much for your questions.
So we have another minute or two before our concluding remarks if anyone wants to type or just unmute themselves for a comment or question. Maurice, are you raising your hand?
I am. I just wanted to mention that the attention that the Crumwood Stewardship Committee on campus is paying to the woods and the trails and the signage and so on. And there might be some sort of cross breeding of those resources. So.
Yeah, we actually reached out to the different members of the Crum Stewardship Committee throughout this project as they were trying to kind of revamp the trails. They put in a lot of new trail markers because we want this information to be as updated as possible for the people using it. But thank you so much for mentioning that.
If I could just add in that the documentation that this group has been doing includes the campus arboretum, the Crum trails, as well as just sort of walking paths around the community. So it's a little bit broader than just that, but absolutely includes the Crum. Last thoughts before we move on? Great. Well, normally I would love to have Mohammed, one of the last Zoom meetings for our seniors, at least Swarthmore based ones. What I was starting to say is normally we would have, some schmoozing time, some chance to chat with each other, or just have a little bit of informal time, and that's not so easy on Zoom. So we did want to conclude in a way that felt good. So I've asked a couple of people to just share some concluding thoughts before we wrap up. So I think that'll be a nicer way to end this on Zoom. So I think we're going to start with Oswaldo, and maybe you can say who you are and how you're connected.
Hi, my name is Oswaldo. I'm a junior. I'm a sustainability research fellow, so not really in this program, but I was a green advisor last year. And through some of this, I've been just working in the background to support Melissa with the green advisors, which has let me see a lot of these projects sort of take shape over the year. I've always been a little jealous that I've never had a sustainability advocate, even when I was a GA, but it's really nice to see these presentations and see how much amazing work is being done when you create these really interesting pairs of students and staff and just older people. Not only do students learn these really crucial job skills like how does work get done in an office, or wow, I guess you can't schedule a meeting at 9 p.m. in a real job. It also helps create some of these skills like learning how to talk about sustainability to different generations. I feel like sometimes students get stuck in these like college academic lenses. And so being able to talk to real people with real words is something that I think we forget to do and is really important to be able to do. Being able to contextualize sustainability within the lives of real people and what they're doing every day is a really great skill. And I think that this GASA project is very amazing in that regard. Like Tara said, there's a lot of interactions between these students and other like groups that students may never get a chance to talk to. This may be like the Friends Meeting House or purchasing or communities in the Ville. These are really great relationships that students sometimes miss out on, and essays are really great in being able to help with those. But I think one of the most important things is just how this project allows students to create space for essays to do their work. I think all of these essays are doing these projects on top of all their other normal work, which makes it really hard to do long involved projects by themselves. But when you have this student that's able to help with this work, there's now someone that can help with logistics, that can help with training, that can help with just brainstorming, which means that projects can be deeper, they can be more impactful. And this can make the essays sort of be able to make a stronger case for why commitment to sustainability should be a thing that they talk about in their department. I think students regularly have conversations about ways to get more people talking and working with sustainability, but these conversations usually don't think about staff and faculty who are working. So I think that the GASA project is really important in helping reach out to these people who normally don't get contacted by students, which I think is what makes it such an important part of the GA role. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Oswaldo. That was really helpful, interesting reflections to share back. And please feel free, we have just a few more prepared remarks, but feel free if anyone wants to jump in and just sort of reflect on anything that anyone's saying. You are most welcome. All right, we turn it over to Maurice.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to spend this afternoon with all of you. I was very eager to have the Swarthmore Friends meeting become a visible and active part of the carbon footprint of the campus. The building, the meeting house, which is the part of the building there that the college owns, and all of it sits on college-owned land, was built in the 19th century by the college because the college was founded by Quakers. And so it's been a part of the college life at one level or another for all of its history. And when I say its, I mean the college's history, as well as the meeting itself. And the other part of the building, known as the Whittier House part of the building, was built in the early part of the 20th century. And together, those form the center of that community, which also rents its space. And there's a nursery school there that's independent and a part of it. And the building is open to the campus for people to use and to have meetings in the meeting house without paying rent, of course, so that this happens from time to time during most school years. There are students who come to meetings, some who are Quakers and some who are curious about what it's like. And so everyone is welcome there, both from obviously the larger external community of the college, but the college community itself. The Whittier House belongs to the meeting. It's not literally a personal property as Kyra described it, because it doesn't belong to an individual, it belongs to an institution. And we're living and working together, and it's been wonderful to have Kyra come and talk with people, get them interested and excited in expanding the range of waste reduction and reuse and so on that we are. And that helps in the community at large because people learn things and go maybe and do them at home and in their other communities as well. So it's been a vital piece of our ongoing life. And I'm happy to say, just because I really like seeing it happen, that there are more students who have showed up for meeting on Sunday mornings and seem to enjoy both the silence and the spoken word when it occurs during that silence, and the fellowship after the meeting is over when we hang out together and have coffee and goodies. Even the well-known cobbler maker named Maurice occasionally presents something for the food, so it's always a very welcoming and sometimes quite delicious opportunity. So I say all that to lead up to thanking Melissa and Aurora for all the work they've done in the sustainability office at the campus and for the GA program that brought Kyra to our doors and to part of the educational system happening inside the meeting. It's been a really good year, and I thank all of you for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It's been wonderful for these opportunities where community partners have come to us and sort of requested to be a part of the program and to have a GA work with them. So the Swarthmore Senior Citizens Association, the Friends Meeting, and other groups. It's been such a pleasure and exciting that that pathway is open. Those opportunities are open, and I'm excited to see that continued in the future. So on that note, perhaps we can turn it over to Aurora for a concluding thought.
Sorry for the background noise. I've got children and puppies. Yeah, thank you very much, Maurice, for bringing that idea to us. I think that is exactly the example of what one of the things Candy, come sit with me. Come sit with me. They want to see you too.
What about the dog?
They don't get to see the dog, but they get to see you. So the thing that makes the program, one of the many things that makes the program so cool, is that people are bringing all these ideas from all across the campus and from the community and helping us figure out what needs to happen, what the next steps are, and not just right now, but building over time. I mean, one of the things that's unusual about the program like this is that the GAs are picking up projects that might have started somewhere else. It might have started with a PSERF, I mean, like the printer project. When Chloe Carole finished, it wasn't a project that was going to continue in PSERF. It could have easily, and I've seen student projects like this just languish and not go anywhere. But the GA program came in, and you've got this amazing staff and student team who are working a way to implement and get the work done. And that there's this handoff at the end of this year that you as the GAs and the staff members and community members who have these projects are handing them off to the next year. And so many of you talked about, here's what we have coming up in the fall. You already know what the next steps are. As many of you already talked about, and as Oswaldo spoke to so eloquently, the relationships are so important. I love the comment.
Anything up there.
Honey, I'm talking right now. They're all listening to me.
Up there, because they have to do.
He's working on art. The comment about meeting for lunch and having a great time. That is like, to me, like I think about the Carole and Linton sitting down with our students and sharing the intergenerational wisdom that is being passed on and passed between these students. And I know I've heard from so many of the staff what a pleasure it is to learn from the Swarthmore students who come from all over the world and bring such a wealth and breadth of experience. I was thinking about one of our students who's not here. I don't know if Lydia is listening in today. She's an Office of Sustainability intern, and I had the great pleasure of observing her as she was helping us interview for our sustainability program manager, because we were very sad, well, very happy for Melissa to be moving on to PhD program. And as we've been interviewing, Lydia talked about being a student at Swarthmore and kind of thinking about the Office of Sustainability and thinking, bah humbug, and I quote. And thinking that, this is probably just this, boring sustainability stuff that can go on in these offices, until she actually got involved just this year, her senior year, and started working on this kind of work that you all are talking about. And she said in one of these discussions about what she wished she had known as a freshman is that she wished she had known that there were these roles that these green advisors have, where students get to work on real projects that are meaningful and meaningful to them. And I'm just blown away. I'm blown away hearing. I can't even keep track over the course of this year. I learned a lot today. I'm blown away by how much work is going on. And what I'm left pondering is how to communicate earlier and more consistently to the people who want to know, because there are students like Lydia who don't find out till their senior year. Even people like me who want to know more about what these projects are doing, and I do care, and somehow I'm not even as informed as I want to be. So I'll be thinking about that, and if you have ideas about that, please do let me know. But I am seeing all of these interconnected threads of green advisors and PSERF fellows and sustainability advocates and project board members and mentors, and the ways that we're weaving together. And for the future, I see us continuing to just up our game, to be more strategic, not only about our campus, but also how we collaborate across the community, and really start to look forward about what kind of community we want to be. And Melissa, you have been absolutely, totally, unbelievably amazing, consistently amazing in building this program. Those students who asked to make this an institutionalized program were very clever, I'm very fortunate to have you as our bold leader because you just really have been so steady and strategic in building both like the nuts and bolts practical, like what's the next step and the next step, but also forward thinking, how do we build something that's going to make a really lasting difference over time? And you are leaving this campus so much better than you found it. And I just am amazed every day working with you. And this is an incredible moment to celebrate your work. It's just, you're an inspiration. And I know you're going to continue to go on and do good work and continue to advise us as an alum. So thank you, Melissa. Maybe everyone take off mute and a round of applause for Melissa. Woo!
Thank you all so much. That's incredibly kind and hard to respond to, and I wish we were in person, but so nice. And I did want to say just that I'm so proud of all the work that's been done this year because it's so much. We got to hear from the GAs and advocates today. We'll hear from the PSERs next week, but so much incredible work. And Keanu's painting too is really incredible. And I'm just immensely grateful to everyone who's helped to build this program over the past 3 years because it's been a real team effort. The Office of Sustainability, of course, but then all of you who have been in the Green Advisors and Advocates roles and all of your colleagues and community partners who have helped to make these projects happen. Really huge, like very massive group effort to make this happen. I did want to say a special thank you to this year's GAs for sticking with these presentations while also finishing your semesters online. It's been a very hard couple of weeks for you. I know I'm going to really appreciate that you stuck to this event because it's so important that we get to share and hear from everyone, as Aurora was saying. It's just an incredible time to hear everything that's been going on, even if cut a little bit short. Of course, it's a bittersweet moment for me. I'm excited for next steps, but very sad to be leaving Swarthmore for a second time. Felt this way as a senior, and I feel it again now. So somewhat relate to how the seniors are feeling in this moment, such as it is online. But I am really excited to hear about the projects in the future. I won't be far away, and we're going to continue having these mid-year and final presentations, I'm sure, and looking for new opportunities for keeping people informed of the work. Yeah, so I just wanted to finish that thought that I'm excited for the future work in all of these projects and how they're going to continue. Since I am heading out, we've been in the midst of interviews for my successor, and we hope to be in finalist interviews by mid-May. And many of you will have already received, students not yet, but staff and some community members, you've already received an invites to 4 open sessions with our finalists. GAs, I didn't want to bother you with emails before this event, but I will send it to you very soon. So that's coming up, and everyone is welcome to attend to meet these really cool candidates who will bring a lot to the community, whoever we end up with. But we do want your insight into those candidates. I know we're basically at time, but some of us in the office were talking earlier, and we know that ending Zoom calls is a little bit hard. And so we wanted to end with a little bit of creativity. So what we're going to try to do, I think, is take a group photo via a screenshot. So Elizabeth and Kyle, I know you're going to help me out with this. But if you all could put your videos on, and in a moment unmute yourself as well. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. We're all going to shout sustainability, and then we're going to take some screenshots. Sound good? Okay, so let me see those videos. I'm going to count it. So get your videos on, unmute yourself. Yeah, amazing. All right, 1, 2, 3, sustainability. Perfect, thank you. I appreciate it. It's great to see everyone. Good luck with the rest of the semester, and have a great weekend.
Everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks everyone.
Bye.
That's cool. He's dead.
Hi.